The sun was setting over the red hills of the mining world. Long shadows stretched across the ground as workers carried their tools back to their homes. The air was filled with the sound of machines cooling down after another long day. Aaron walked slowly toward his small workshop, wiping dust from his hands. He had spent hours fixing broken loaders at the mine, and his body ached, but he was used to the pain. This was life on the edge of the galaxy. Hard work, little pay, and endless dust. Aaron's workshop stood at the edge of the village. It was not big, but it had enough space for his tools and the machines he repaired. He liked living there because it was quiet. The noise of the trade lords and their guards rarely reached that far. He was not rich, and he had no family left, but he was proud of his work. People brought him broken parts, and he made them work again. That was his way of surviving. As he walked home, Aaron noticed something unusual. By the side of the dusty road, near a cluster of broken rocks, someone was sitting. At first, he thought it was just another miner resting after a hard shift. But as he stepped closer, he saw it was a woman. Her clothes were torn and covered with dust. She looked as if she had been walking for hours under the burning sun. Her hair was messy, and her face was pale. She tried to stand when she saw him, but her legs trembled, and she sank back to the ground. Aaron stopped in front of her. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. The woman looked up at him with tired eyes. "I just need water," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost broken. Aaron quickly reached into his pack and pulled out a small flask. He handed it to her, and she drank deeply. He could see her hands shaking as she held the flask, as if she had not touched water in a long time. When she finished, she let out a small sigh and handed it back. "Thank you," she said quietly. Aaron studied her for a moment. She did not look like the miners he saw every day. Her clothes, though torn, were made of fine fabric. The way she spoke was different too, careful and clear. He wondered what someone like her was doing alone in such a rough place. Still, he did not ask questions. He could see she needed help. "You should not stay out here," Aaron said. "The nights are cold, and the trade lords' guards patrol this road. Come with me. My workshop is not far." The woman hesitated. Her eyes searched his face, as if she was trying to read his thoughts. Then she gave a small nod. Aaron reached out his hand to help her up. She stood, leaning on him for support, and together they walked toward his workshop. Inside, Aaron guided her to a small bench near his work table. The room smelled of oil and metal, but it was warm and safe. He lit a small lamp, filling the space with soft yellow light. The woman sat quietly, looking around at the shelves filled with spare parts and tools. "Do you have a name?" Aaron asked as he set a kettle of water on the small stove. "Myra," she said after a pause. Aaron smiled a little. "I am Aaron. You can rest here for now. I will bring you food." Myra nodded and lowered her head. She seemed both grateful and guarded at the same time, as if she carried secrets she was not ready to share. Aaron did not press her. He had seen enough of the galaxy to know that everyone had their own story, and not all stories wanted to be told. He placed a bowl of simple stew in front of her, made from roots and dried meat. Myra ate slowly, but her hands shook less now. Aaron watched quietly, noticing how carefully she moved, how her eyes seemed to measure everything in the room. She was not just a lost traveler. He felt it in his bones. But again, he kept his thoughts to himself. Outside, the night grew darker. The sound of distant engines echoed from the direction of the mines, but here in the workshop, it was calm. After eating, Myra leaned back against the wall, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "You should rest," Aaron said. "There is a small room at the back. It is not much, but it is better than the floor." Myra looked at him, her gaze steady. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Aaron thought for a moment. He was not used to explaining his actions. Finally, he said, "Because you needed help. That is reason enough." Myra studied him a little longer, then nodded again. She rose slowly and walked toward the small room he pointed to. Aaron gave her a blanket and wished her a good night. She thanked him softly before closing the door. Aaron sat alone in the workshop for a while, listening to the quiet. He could not shake the feeling that Myra was more than she seemed. But he told himself it did not matter. Whoever she was safe here, at least for now. When he finally lay down to rest, the stars outside shone brightly over the mining world. Somewhere beyond those stars, great powers moved and wars were fought. But in this small corner of the galaxy, all that mattered was a stranger in need and a man willing to help. Aaron closed his eyes, not knowing that his simple act of kindness would soon change his life, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. Morning light crept through the cracks of Aaron's workshop. The soft glow touched the shelves of tools and the piles of broken machine parts waiting to be repaired. Aaron woke early, as he always did. He washed his face with cold water, tied back his rough hair, and prepared for another long day. But this time, there was something different. There was a stranger sleeping in the small room at the back, a woman he barely knew, who called herself Myra. Aaron walked quietly to check on her. She was still asleep, wrapped in the blanket he had given her. Her face looked calmer than the night before, though there were still signs of exhaustion. He wondered again who she really was and what had brought her to such a harsh world. Yet he did not disturb her. Instead, he prepared a simple breakfast from the little food he had. By the time Myra woke, the workshop was alive with the sound of tools. Aaron was already fixing a broken mining drill. The sharp clink of metal against metal filled the air. Myra stepped out of the small room, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked healthier than last night, though her clothes were still dusty and torn. "You are awake," Aaron said without looking up. "There is food on the table." Myra walked slowly to the table and sat down. She ate in silence for a while, watching Aaron work. He was focused, his strong hands moving with skill as he repaired the drill. She noticed how careful he was, treating every piece of metal as if it mattered. "You live alone," she said softly. Aaron nodded. "Yes. It is easier that way. I fix what is broken. That is enough." Myra tilted her head. "And the people here? Do they not need you?" "They need me often," Aaron said, wiping sweat from his brow. "But they do not stay long. They bring machines, they leave, and they return only when something else breaks. It is how things are." Myra was quiet for a moment, then asked, "And the trade lords?" Aaron's face hardened. "They take what they want. They control the mines, the supplies, even the air filters. No one here is free. But we survive." He set down the tool and turned to her. "You are not from here. You speak like someone who has lived far from places like this. Why are you on this world?" Myra met his eyes but gave no answer. She lowered her gaze and said only, "I was lost." Aaron studied her for a moment, then gave a small shrug. "Lost or not, you are safe here. That is all that matters. For the next few days, Myra stayed in the workshop. She watched Aaron as he repaired loaders, welders, and drills. At first, she only observed, but soon she began to help. She held tools for him, cleaned metal parts, and even learned to handle simple repairs. She was quick to understand, and Aaron was surprised at how easily she picked up the work. "You learn fast," he told her one afternoon as she replaced a cracked filter. "I have seen machines before," Myra said with a faint smile. "But I never worked with them myself. It feels different when you touch the metal and see it live again." Aaron nodded. "Machines are like people. They break when pushed too hard. But if you take care of them, they last." Myra looked at him thoughtfully. "And who takes care of you, Aaron?" He paused, caught off guard by her question. He gave a small laugh. "No one needs to. I manage." But Myra could see the truth in his eyes. He carried his burdens alone, without complaint, yet loneliness followed him like a shadow. She admired his strength, but she also felt sadness for him. In the evenings, after the day's work, they sat outside the workshop. The red hills stretched far into the distance, and the stars began to shine above. The air grew cooler, and the silence of the desert world surrounded them. Aaron sometimes told her small stories of the village, the miners who struggled to feed their families, the children who played with scrap metal toys, the old workers who remembered better times before the trade lords grew so powerful. Myra listened closely. Each story weighed heavily on her heart. She had seen great cities in her life, golden halls, and fleets of ships. But here, among the dust and the miners, she saw something different: quiet suffering, but also quiet strength. One night, as they sat watching the stars, Myra whispered, "Do you ever dream of leaving this place?" Aaron looked at her with calm eyes. "Everyone dreams. Few get the chance. My life is here. The galaxy is too big, and men like me are too small to change it." Myra turned her gaze to the sky. A flicker of sadness crossed her face. She knew that if she revealed her truth, she could change his world with a single command. But she was not ready. She wanted to see more, to understand more, before she told him who she really was. The days passed, and the villagers began to notice Myra. They saw her helping Aaron and speaking kindly to them when they brought broken machines. Some whispered questions about where she came from, but no one pressed too hard. In places ruled by trade lords, everyone learned not to ask too many questions. One morning, a miner came rushing into the workshop. His voice was full of fear. "The guards are coming. They are searching the houses again." Myra froze. Aaron saw the tension in her eyes, but he only nodded calmly. "Let them search. We have nothing to hide." The miner left, and soon the sound of boots echoed in the distance. Myra looked at Aaron. "You are not afraid?" "I live by fixing what is broken," Aaron said. "Fear is for those who still have something to lose." But Myra knew he was wrong. He had much to lose, though he did not see it yet. She looked at him with quiet resolve. This simple man, who had helped her without question, was already part of her life in a way she had not expected. She would not let harm come to him. As the boots drew closer, Myra tightened her hands into fists, hiding the small crest she kept under her clothes. Aaron did not know what it meant. No one here did. But if the guards discovered it, the quiet life in the workshop would end forever. The night of peace was fading. Change was coming, and both Aaron and Myra could feel it, even if they could not yet see its full shape. The guards came and went, as they often did. They searched the houses, checked the storage rooms, and took whatever supplies pleased them. Their boots left marks in the dust, and their voices carried orders without care for the people who lived there. But in Aaron's workshop, nothing unusual was found. The guards glanced at Myra but seemed to think she was only another tired worker. With no reason to stay, they marched away, leaving behind the same fear they always spread. Myra let out a slow breath of relief. Aaron noticed the way her hands trembled slightly as she set down the tool she had been holding. He did not ask questions, though. Instead, he returned to his workbench, quietly hammering a loose panel back into shape. "Do they always take from the people?" Myra asked after a moment. "Yes," Aaron said, not looking up. "They believe everything here belongs to them. Even the people." Myra lowered her gaze. Her heart ached for the villagers who lived in constant fear. She had known authority before, but never in such a cruel and careless form. Here, power was not used to protect but to crush. Over the next few days, Myra remained by Aaron's side. She learned more about the machines, and soon she was not only watching but working. She repaired filters, adjusted engines, and even managed to fix a broken power cell. The villagers were surprised to see her skill, and many came to respect her as much as they respected Aaron. One evening, a young boy came to the workshop. He carried a small toy, a wooden cart with wheels broken off. His eyes were wide as he handed it to Myra. "Can you fix this?" he asked. Myra smiled gently and took the toy. She sat on the bench with the boy beside her, studying the broken wheels. With care, she shaped new ones from scrap and attached them firmly. When she handed the toy back, the boy's face lit up with joy. He ran out of the workshop, calling to his friends to see. Aaron, who had been watching, gave a small smile. "You could repair more than machines, Myra. You repair spirits." She looked at him with soft eyes. "And you repair lives, Aaron. Every day you keep this place alive with your hands." Their friendship grew in quiet ways. They shared meals, stories, and laughter in the evenings. Myra told him about distant stars she had visited, though never in detail about who she was. Aaron told her about his childhood in the village, how his father had been a miner and his mother had cooked for the workers. He spoke of the day he lost them both to a cave collapse, and how he had survived by fixing machines until he could build his own workshop. Myra listened with deep respect. "You are stronger than you know," she told him. Aaron shook his head. "Strength is useless if the world never changes. We keep living the same days, waiting for things to get worse." Myra's eyes turned to the stars outside the window. She wanted to tell him the truth, that she had the power to change everything with a single command. But she stayed silent. She wanted to see more of his world, to understand it not as an empress but as a woman walking among common people. One night, as they sat by the door of the workshop, the sky filled with bright streaks of light. A meteor shower passed over the desert hills, painting the darkness with silver trails. Myra gazed in wonder, while Aaron leaned back, his hands resting on the ground. "It is beautiful," she whispered. Aaron nodded. "It reminds me that there is more beyond this dust. The stars carry secrets we will never touch." Myra turned her head toward him. "Would you go, if you could?" He gave a small smile. "Once, I dreamed of leaving. But now, I think I would stay. Someone has to care for this place. Someone has to repair what is broken." His words touched her deeply. She realized how rare it was to find such loyalty, such quiet courage. In all her life, she had seen leaders surrounded by wealth, but few who carried hearts as steady as Aaron's. As days passed, Myra became part of the village in small ways. She helped mothers carry water, she listened to old miners tell their stories, and she comforted children when guards shouted at them. She did not act like someone above them, but as one of them. The villagers began to whisper that she was a gift, sent to bring light to their lives. But in the shadows of her heart, Myra carried worry. She knew her identity could not remain hidden forever. The guards might one day look closer, or the trade lords might send word to higher powers. She could not tell Aaron yet, but she could feel the moment drawing near. One afternoon, as she polished a broken engine part, Aaron asked her something unexpected. "Myra, when you look at the stars, do you feel at home or far from it?" She paused, her hands still on the metal. Slowly, she said, "Both. The stars are part of me, but they are also what I miss most. Here, among the dust and the people, I feel something I have not felt in a long time." "And what is that?" he asked. Myra looked at him, her eyes warm. "Belonging." Aaron said nothing, but the word stayed in his heart long after. That night, Myra could not sleep. She stood outside the workshop, staring at the galaxy above. The stars were countless, each carrying memories of her empire, her fleets, her golden halls. But here, she had found something those stars had never given her. She had found trust, kindness, and a man who saw her not as a ruler but as a person. Still, danger lingered at the edges of her thoughts. She knew the quiet days would not last. Secrets always came to light. And when hers did, Aaron's life would change forever. For now, she kept her secret hidden in the shadows, while their friendship grew stronger each day. In a world ruled by fear, they had found a small shelter in each other. But the galaxy beyond was waiting, and it would not wait forever. The days of peace could not last. The mining world was too small, too controlled, and too often visited by those who served the trade lords. Rumors began to spread through the village. Whispers said that someone important had been hiding among them, someone the galaxy was searching for. At first, no one believed the stories, but when larger ships appeared in the skies, the whispers turned into fear. One morning, the ground shook as shadows fell across the hills. 3 massive ships descended from the clouds, their golden banners shining in the sun. The villagers ran from their homes, gathering in the square as the ships hovered above. Soldiers poured out in perfect lines, their armor polished, their steps sharp. At the front stood a commander with a crest on his chest that marked him as part of the Imperial fleet. Aaron stood among the villagers, watching with cautious eyes. He had seen many soldiers before, but never like these. They carried themselves with pride, not cruelty. Their banners did not belong to the trade lords. Something was different. The commander's voice rang across the square. "People of this world, we search for our lost sovereign. She has been missing, and the galaxy waits for her return. We will not harm you if you speak truth. Where is she?" The villagers glanced at one another in confusion. Some shook their heads. Others looked fearful. None spoke. Aaron turned to Myra, who stood beside him, her face pale. He saw the way her hands clenched, the way her eyes fixed on the golden banners. His heart began to race as he realized the truth he had not wanted to see. "Myra," he whispered. "It is you, isn't it?" Her lips parted, but no words came. Her secret had reached its end. She stepped forward slowly, her back straight, her eyes steady. The soldiers saw her and froze. The commander's voice cracked with sudden emotion. "Your Majesty," he said, dropping to one knee. The soldiers followed at once, kneeling as one. The entire square fell into silence. Gasps rose from the villagers. Some covered their mouths, others stumbled back in shock. They had lived beside her, spoken to her, even shared food with her, and never guessed who she truly was. Aaron felt his world tilt. Myra was not just a traveler, not just a woman who had lost her way. She was the ruler of the galaxy, the empress whose name reached every corner of the stars. She was richer than any queen alive, her fleet strong enough to shake entire worlds. And yet, she had worked beside him in his small workshop, repairing broken machines as if she were no different from anyone else. Myra lifted her hand, showing the crest she had kept hidden under her clothes. It glowed faintly in the sunlight, a symbol known across countless worlds. The commander bowed his head deeply. "We searched for you across the stars. The council feared the worst. But you are here, safe." Aaron stared at her, his chest heavy. He remembered every moment they had shared, the meals, the laughter, the starlit nights, and now they felt like fragile glass, ready to shatter. The villagers did not know what to do. Some bowed low to her, others stood frozen. Children hid behind their parents, peeking at the woman who had played with them only days before. The air was thick with awe and fear. Myra's voice rose above the silence. "People of this world, forgive me for hiding. I came here seeking peace, seeking to walk among you without crown or title. You welcomed me with kindness, without knowing who I was. For that, I am grateful beyond words." The commander raised his head. "Your Majesty, we must return at once. The galaxy waits for your hand to guide it. The council grows restless. There are matters of war and trade that only you can decide." Myra hesitated. Her gaze turned toward Aaron, who still had not moved. His face was unreadable, but his eyes burned with questions. She wanted to speak to him, to explain why she had hidden her truth, but the moment was too large, too heavy. The commander stepped closer. "My Empress, we cannot delay. Please, come with us." Myra's voice was calm but firm. "I will return, but not as I was before. I have seen how people suffer under cruel lords who claim power while hiding behind my name. No longer will I allow it. From this day, the miners of this world will be free. They will not bow to trade lords or guards. They will work in dignity, and they will live without chains." The villagers erupted in cries of hope and disbelief. Many dropped to their knees, tears in their eyes. They had never imagined freedom could come so swiftly, with words spoken in their own square. The commander saluted sharply. "As you command, so it shall be." But Aaron did not cheer. He stood still, his hands clenched at his sides. Myra turned to him, her eyes full of something she could not hide, fear that she might lose him. "I never lied about who I was inside," she said softly, only for him to hear. "When I was with you, I was Myra, not Empress. You saw me as no one else ever has." Aaron looked at her, his voice rough. "And yet, you hid from me. You walked into my life as a stranger, but all along you carried a crown. How can I believe that anything between us was real?" Her eyes filled with quiet pain. "Because you treated me as a person. Not as a queen, not as a ruler, not as wealth or power. You gave me kindness when I had nothing. That is real." For a long moment, The two stood in silence while the village waited. Soldiers bowed, villagers whispered, banners waved in the wind, but in that small space only Myra and Aaron existed. At last, Aaron turned away, unable to answer. His world had changed too suddenly, too completely. The woman he had helped was no longer just Myra. She was Empress Myra, ruler of the galaxy. And nothing would ever be the same. The commander gestured for the Empress to follow. With heavy steps, Myra walked toward the golden ship. But before boarding, she looked back at the village, at the children, at the miners, and at Aaron. Her voice carried clear and strong. This world will know freedom. And the man who gave me shelter will never be forgotten. Then the doors of the ship closed, and the fleet began to rise into the sky. The villagers watched in awe, their hearts filled with new hope. Aaron stood alone at the edge of the square, staring at the fading light of the ships. He had once thought his life too small to touch the stars. Now the stars had come to him, in the form of a woman who had changed everything. The mining world was never the same after Myra's secret was revealed. News spread faster than fire in dry grass. Villagers who had once lived in silence now spoke with excitement, telling each other that the woman who had shared food with them, who had repaired toys for their children, was in truth the ruler of the galaxy. For the first time in generations, hope grew in their hearts. But while the villagers rejoiced, Aaron felt only confusion. He sat in his workshop, staring at the tools scattered across the bench. His hands, usually steady, now trembled when he reached for a wrench. The memory of Myra's standing in the square with soldiers kneeling before her refused to leave his mind. He remembered her smile when she learned to repair a filter, her laughter when children played around her, and her quiet voice when she whispered about belonging. Those moments had felt so real, yet now they seemed like shadows. Had he truly known her? Or had he only known a mask she wore to hide her crown? The village soon changed as imperial fleets arrived with supplies. Great crates of food, clean water, and medical machines were unloaded in the square. The soldiers worked alongside the miners, repairing old houses and rebuilding broken roads. For once, the people saw uniforms that did not strike them with fear. The miners gathered to thank Myra, though she was not on the world anymore. Her voice came through a shining screen placed in the center of the village. She promised them freedom from the trade lords, protection from greed, and a future where their children would not live under chains. Every word she spoke lifted the villagers' spirits higher. Yet Aaron stood at the edge of the crowd, silent. He could not cheer with the others. He wanted to believe her words, but his heart was still torn. The Myra he knew in the workshop had felt close, human, and fragile. The Empress speaking from the screen seemed far away, untouchable, and powerful beyond measure. One evening, as he sat outside the workshop, the sky lit up again. A smaller imperial ship descended, shining like silver in the fading light. From it stepped Myra, wearing a cloak of deep blue, her crest glowing faintly on her chest. Soldiers bowed as she passed, but she raised her hand to stop them. She wanted no ceremony. She wanted only to see him. Aaron rose to his feet as she approached. His face was unreadable. Myra stood before him, her eyes soft but full of strength. "You returned," Aaron said quietly. "I had to," she answered. "I could not leave without speaking to you again." They walked together into the workshop. Inside, the place was the same as before: oil on the walls, tools neatly arranged, the smell of metal and dust. Myra touched the bench where she had once sat to eat simple stew, and for a moment, she seemed less like an empress and more like the woman who had first entered his life. You are richer than any queen alive, Aaron said at last. You could live in golden halls, command fleets, own whole worlds. Why did you hide here, in dust and broken machines? Myra looked into his eyes. Because wealth and crowns do not fill the heart. Power is heavy, Aaron. Every day, I make choices that affect millions of lives. Yet I was lonely, surrounded by those who bowed but never truly saw me. Here, you saw me as Myra. You gave me kindness without asking for anything in return. That is worth more than any treasure. Her words struck deep, but Aaron's doubts remained. You say that now. But when you return to your empire, when you sit again on your throne, will you still remember the people here? Will you still remember me? Myra stepped closer, her voice steady. I will remember always. This world showed me what my empire had forgotten, that every person matters, even the smallest voice. And you, Aaron, showed me that trust can be found in places I never expected. Aaron turned away, his hands tightening into fists. I am no ruler. I am only a man who repairs what is broken. Our lives are not the same. How can they ever be? Myra reached out and touched his shoulder. Because even rulers need someone who reminds them of what is real. I may command fleets, but I cannot command kindness. That is a gift only you gave me. The silence between them was heavy but gentle. Aaron felt his anger soften, though his doubts still lingered. Days passed, and Myra remained on the mining world longer than expected. She ordered her soldiers to rebuild the mines in safer ways, to provide new tools, and to teach the villagers skills beyond digging in dust. She promised schools for the children, healers for the sick, and fair trade for the workers. The people cheered her name with joy, calling her not only empress but savior. Yet at night, she often returned to the workshop, sitting beside Aaron as she once had. Sometimes they worked together on machines, other times they simply watched the stars. Slowly, the wall between them began to fade. Aaron still struggled with the truth of who she was, but he could not deny the warmth he felt in her presence. One night, as they sat under the open sky, Myra spoke quietly. Do you know why I chose this world when I left my palace? Aaron shook his head. Because it was forgotten, she said. No one in the council cared for it. No trade routes passed here. It was a place of dust, ruled by greedy hands, left to suffer in silence. I wanted to see what life was like in places even my empire ignored. I wanted to see if people still had hope. And I found you. Her words hung in the air, filled with truth. Aaron looked at her, seeing not only the ruler of the galaxy but also the woman who had walked into his life with tired eyes and torn clothes. He realized then that both were real, the empress and the woman called Myra. Still, fear lingered in his heart. He wondered if he could truly walk beside her in a life so far above his own. But when she smiled at him, calm and sincere, he felt the weight of his doubts lessen. For the villagers, Myra was now a legend, the ruler who returned in secret to bring them freedom. For the galaxy, she was the empress whose wealth and power reached beyond measure. But for Aaron, she was still the woman he had found by the road, thirsty and lost, and the woman who had shown him that even rulers could long for kindness. In the shadows of the workshop, as stars filled the sky, Aaron finally spoke the thought that had been locked in his chest. You may be richer than any queen alive, he said softly. But what you found here was something no wealth can buy. Myra's eyes glowed with warmth, and for the first time since her secret had been revealed, Aaron felt a quiet peace settle in his heart. The golden ships hovered above the village, but Myra walked among the villagers as if she were just another person. Soldiers and guards followed at a distance, ready to act if needed, but she paid them no mind. Her presence alone brought hope and a sense of safety the villagers had never known. Aaron watched from the edge of the square. His heart was heavy but full. Myra had shown him who she truly was, not only as the ruler of the galaxy but as a woman with a kind heart. He still struggled to believe that someone of her power could care so deeply for a small dusty world. Myra turned to Aaron, her eyes steady. "We cannot leave them behind," she said. "The trade lords will not stop unless someone shows them the world is watching." Aaron nodded. "Then what will you do?" "I will give them freedom," she said firmly. "Not just for today, but for the future. They will not live in fear, nor will they be forced to serve cruel hands. My fleets will protect them, my empire will provide, and my voice will carry their story across the stars." The villagers had gathered in the square, their faces shining with hope. Mothers held their children close, and miners looked to the sky with disbelief. They had never imagined such care would come from someone of such great power. Some whispered that this was a miracle, others that the Empress herself had walked among them to see their lives firsthand. Myra addressed the people, her voice both gentle and commanding. "People of this world, I have seen your strength, your patience, and your courage. You work hard, you endure much, and yet you give kindness to strangers. You do not deserve fear or oppression. Today, that ends." Cheers erupted from the crowd. Tears streamed down the faces of men and women who had known nothing but hardship. For the first time in their lives, they believed the future could be different. Aaron stayed close to Myra, watching her. He noticed how her hands, so often used to signing orders and commanding fleets, now reached out to help a child who had fallen, or to lift a bucket of water for an elderly miner. Her wealth and power did not distance her from the people. Instead, she used it to serve them. Later, Aaron walked beside her through the village streets. "You could have stayed in your palace," he said quietly. "You could have sent soldiers and never set foot here." Myra smiled softly. "And they would have remained afraid. Power without care does nothing. I have everything I could ever want, but it is not enough if it does not help those who cannot help themselves. You showed me that, Aaron. You taught me that even the smallest acts of kindness are worth more than the largest treasures." They stopped near the old well, where children played with repaired toys and laughter filled the air. Myra watched them, a rare warmth in her eyes. "This is why I stay," she said. "Because wealth and crowns are empty if hearts are not full. This world deserves more than survival. It deserves respect, safety, and dignity." Aaron looked at her, his mind racing. He had always believed life was simple: repair what is broken, survive, and endure. But Myra had changed everything. Her choice to stay among the villagers, to use her power for good rather than fear, showed him that true strength was not measured in wealth or fleets, but in courage and care. The evening came, and the stars shone above the village. Myra and Aaron returned to the workshop, where the light of a single lamp illuminated the small space. She sat on the bench, her hands resting on her lap. Aaron placed a small tool beside her, fixing it earlier with care, as if even this tiny machine mattered in the larger world. "You could rule countless worlds," Aaron said, breaking the silence. "Yet you choose this place." "Because this place is real," Myra replied softly. "It is not a palace, not a throne, not a starship. It is made of dust, sweat, and hard work. And yet, it has life, and it has people worth protecting. I can give them safety, education, and freedom. That choice is worth more than all the riches I could hold. Aaron studied her closely. And what about you? Do you ever think of the empire? The fleets? The councils? The power? Myra's gaze turned to the stars. Every day. But power is a tool. It can help or harm. I choose to help. And I choose to walk among people like you, who remind me why power should serve kindness, not fear. Silence settled between them, comfortable and deep. The sounds of the village softened in the distance, replaced by the quiet hum of the wind over the red hills. For a moment, it felt as if the world had stopped, leaving only the two of them, sharing a truth neither had spoken before. The following days were filled with action. Myra ordered the rebuilding of schools, the construction of clean water systems, and the redistribution of resources to those in need. Soldiers taught miners new ways to work more efficiently and safely. The trade lords who had once ruled through fear found their power challenged by the Empress herself. Aaron assisted where he could, repairing machines and training villagers. Though he had once felt small and powerless, now he realized that even his skills mattered. Myra had shown him that service and care, even in small ways, could make a difference in the lives of many. One night, as they sat outside the workshop, Myra turned to Aaron. "You gave me something I never expected," she said quietly. "You reminded me that even someone with no crown, no wealth, and no fleet can teach an empress about what matters most." Aaron shook his head. "I only did what anyone should. Helped when help was needed." "No," Myra said firmly. "You did more than that. You treated me as a person, not as a queen. That is rare in the galaxy, and it is priceless." For the first time, Aaron felt a warmth that went beyond admiration or fear. It was respect, trust, and a growing bond he could not name. Myra, too, felt it, a quiet connection that had started when she was lost and ended when she chose to serve others rather than retreat to wealth. Together, they walked back to the village square. Children waved, mothers smiled, and the miners greeted them with quiet nods. The world had changed. The people who had lived under fear now had hope. And the woman who could command fleets and own countless treasures had chosen to stay because of something far greater than wealth, the gift of making life better for others. That night, Aaron finally understood. Myra was not only richer than any queen alive in terms of gold or power. She was richer in heart, courage, and vision. And by choosing to share that richness with the people around her, she had shown that the true measure of wealth was the good one could do in the world. The village was alive with activity. New machines hummed in the workshops, children laughed in the streets, and clean water flowed through channels built by Myra's orders. The miners worked with hope in their hearts, no longer burdened by fear or oppression. The presence of the Empress had changed everything, but more importantly, it had shown the villagers that kindness and courage mattered as much as power. Aaron walked through the square, carrying tools to repair a damaged loader. He paused as he watched Myra speak to a group of villagers, her voice gentle yet firm. She gave instructions, encouraged them to learn, and listened to their concerns. She was the Empress, but here she was not distant or untouchable. She was one of them, a leader who cared with her heart as much as her power. He felt a quiet pride. He had known her when she was lost, tired, and without title. Now, he saw the same kindness and courage reflected in her eyes, but magnified by the wisdom and strength she had carried as a ruler. Aaron realized that the person he had helped was not only extraordinary, she was extraordinary in ways he had never imagined. That evening, Myra came to the workshop. The sun had set, and stars sparkled over the red hills. Aaron had been repairing a small machine, but he stopped when he saw her enter. She smiled softly. "Aaron," she said, "come with me. I want to show you something." Curious, he followed her outside. She led him to a hill overlooking the village. The newly built water channels glimmered in the light of the lanterns. Children played, miners rested, and the glow of warmth spread through every home. "I have seen many worlds," Myra said, her voice carrying quiet wonder. "Palaces of gold, fleets that stretch across systems, cities that reach the clouds. But none of that compared to this: the lives of people who choose to care for one another, who work together, who build hope from dust and sweat." Aaron nodded, feeling the truth in her words. "It is beautiful," he said quietly. Myra turned to him. "I could have returned to my empire and ruled from a distance. I could have used my fleets to enforce peace, and the villagers would obey. But that would not have been real. True change comes from understanding, from walking among people, from giving without asking for reward." Aaron watched her, noticing how different she was now from the empress who had first appeared in the square. She was powerful, yes, but her power was guided by compassion. Her wealth was not for herself, it was a gift she shared with others. "You taught me something," she continued. "You taught me that even the smallest act of kindness can carry meaning. You gave me shelter when I had nothing. You treated me as a person. And that is a gift I will never forget." Aaron looked down, unsure what to say. "I only did what anyone should do," he murmured. "No," Myra said firmly, placing her hand on his arm. "You did more than that. You reminded me that humanity's true power is not gold, fleets, or titles. It is the courage to care, the strength to help, and the wisdom to choose kindness even when it is difficult. You gave me that gift, Aaron. And because of it, this world is free." A breeze swept over the hill, carrying the sounds of laughter, voices, and the quiet hum of machines working. Aaron felt a warmth he had never known. He had lived a life of routine, fixing broken things, surviving in a harsh world. And yet, through one simple act of kindness, he had changed the life of a woman who ruled countless worlds, and in turn, she had changed the lives of everyone around him. Myra looked up at the stars. "I could command the galaxy," she said softly. "I could have power beyond measure, but it would mean nothing if I did not honor the lives I touch. True wealth is measured in lives improved, in hope given, in courage inspired. That is the real gift of humanity." Aaron watched her and realized that the woman beside him was more than an empress. She was a symbol of what humans could be at their best. And he had a part in it, simply by giving her help when she needed it most. Days turned into weeks. Myra stayed on the world longer than anyone expected. She trained the villagers in new ways to farm, mine, and repair. She instructed the young to read maps, understand the stars, and learn skills that would carry them beyond their small world. Every day, her presence inspired others to be brave, to care, and to act with honor. Aaron worked alongside her, teaching what he knew and learning from her in turn. Together, they repaired machines, improved systems, and built a community stronger than it had ever been. Though he had once felt ordinary, he now knew that ordinary people could create extraordinary change. One quiet evening, Myra turned to him. "Aaron, you will never see yourself as I do. But know this, the life you gave me, the trust you showed me, the simple act of helping someone in need, it is the foundation of every good choice I make. You have shaped the galaxy in ways you cannot imagine." Aaron shook his head. "I just helped a woman who needed help. I never thought it would lead to this. That is the point, Myra said softly. It was never about power or reward. It was about humanity. That is why your act matters more than any title or treasure. He looked at her, realizing for the first time that true greatness did not come from crowns or gold. It came from the courage to act with care, the willingness to help, and the choice to honor the lives around you. He felt a deep sense of pride, not for what he had done, but for what humanity had shown through his simple actions. The village continued to thrive. The miners were free, children learned without fear, and every day, the world felt brighter. Myra's fleet remained nearby, not to rule with force, but to protect and serve. And Aaron knew that the woman he had helped, the Empress of countless worlds, had chosen to stay because of one simple truth: kindness and courage were more valuable than all the riches of the galaxy. At night, as they stood together on the hill overlooking the village, Myra whispered, "The gift of humanity is not measured in wealth or power. It is measured in hearts, in choices, and in courage. And that is what you gave me, Aaron. That is what we now give to the galaxy." He looked at her, understanding fully now. Their lives had been changed forever, not by titles or armies, but by one simple act of helping someone who needed it. It was a gift that would ripple through the stars, shaping the future in ways neither of them could yet see. The stars shone above, the village slept peacefully, and the galaxy waited. And in that quiet, ordinary place, the extraordinary power of humanity had been revealed. Aaron realized that sometimes the smallest acts, kindness, trust, courage, could be the greatest gifts of all. Myra took his hand gently, and together, they watched the horizon. Their future was uncertain, vast, and full of challenges. Yet they faced it with hope, knowing that the true power of humanity lay in hearts willing to care, hands willing to help, and lives willing to act with courage. And in that choice, the Empress and the man who had helped her discovered the richest treasure of all, humanity's gift.